The Story of the Center Unified School District, written by Janice Lynch, published by Center Unified School District, 1988 North Highlands, California. Hi, my name is Oliver Oaktree. I'm a very old tree and I've lived along the banks of Dry Creek all my life. I have been asked to tell you the story about the things I've seen, and especially I'd like to tell you about the little school I've lived next to all these years. When I was just a sapling, the Spanish ruled California. They said this land belonged to a man named John Sutter. I never saw him myself, but Mrs. Scrub Jay, who lived in the second nest on the left, said he lived in a fort called Sutter's Fort. That's where Sacramento City is now. The only people I saw around here when I was young were the Maidu Indians. As a matter of fact, I grew from an acorn that fell from one of their baskets. The Indians lived along the Sacramento River. I would watch the men hunt elk or deer. They were really good hunters. The women would gather acorns from some of my friends. We oak trees felt very proud when the Indians gathered our acorns. Sometimes I watched the Indians catching grasshoppers. They thought grasshoppers were a special treat. They would roast them on their campfires and eat them. When I was just old enough to grow acorns, I saw my first white men. It was the year 1849. The men had flat pans. They would dip the pans in the creek and fill them with rocks and sand. Then they'd swirl the pans around looking for something called gold. I heard them talking about how excited everyone was when a man named James Marshall found some gold in Sutter's Mill Pond. I guess the miners never found any gold in my dry creek, because after a while they left and I never saw them again. Later, I saw more and more people called Americans. I saw whole families riding in covered wagons pulled by oxen or mules. The wagon trains always went the same way, and one day I found out why. A family had stopped under my branches for lunch, and I overheard them talking about their trip. They had had a long, hard journey across deserts and mountains. It had taken them almost a year, and now they were near the end of their journey. They were following the Nevada Road. It took them over the Sierra Nevada mountains and through what is now the Roseville area, then on to my home near Center Elementary, across the fields, following Dry Creek a short way, finally joining the old Marysville Road and onto Sacramento. The Nevada Road was one of the main emigrant trails. If you know where to look, you can still find the old trail by digging down a few inches. Many came to California to look for gold, but later decided to settle here along the banks of Dry Creek. There was Elisha Driver who lived along the old Grant Line Road, now called U Street. He was one of the people who founded the California State Fair. Elisha, his son Charles, and great-grandson Melville all served on our school board of trustees for a total of 94 years. Abram Kitely lived off of 16th Street. He served on the school board for 45 years besides running a successful ranch. John Chatterton lived in that beautiful grove of my fellow oak trees across the street from what is now called Gibson Ranch Park. He worked on the first steam engine ever built in California. There were the Dyers who made charcoal for the people in Sacramento, and the Goulds who were one of the first to settle here. These are some of the early pioneers who founded our school district. In 1859, when your great-great-grandparents were children, the neighbors around here got together and decided to petition for a school, and School District Number 2 was formed. That's what Center Unified School District was called 130 years ago. It was a big district because not many people lived here. It stretched all the way from the Placer County line to about where Freeway 80 crosses Watt Avenue today. But Center School District was just for the children in Sacramento County. What about the children who lived in Placer County, the Goulds, the Dyers, and their neighbors? Mr. Dyer saddled his horse and took a census, counted the people, in the area between Rockland and the Sacramento River to see if there were enough children to form another school district. And in 1862, the Union School District was formed in Placer County. Sometime between 1858 and 1862, my old memory's a little foggy about the exact date, all the neighbors got together, cleared a patch of land near me on the Sacramento-Placer County line, and built a little schoolhouse. The Center and the Union School Districts both use the little schoolhouse, so they called it the Center Union School. It wasn't much to look at, just a small wooden building with a couple of windows on one side and a door on the front. But those farmers were certainly pleased with it. The school was year-round, but sometimes the children couldn't attend. In the summer, they were needed on the ranches to help with harvest. In the winter, Dry Creek would occasionally get so flooded and muddy the children couldn't cross it to get to school. They were good students, though. I could hear the teacher instructing them in reading, writing, arithmetic, geography, and history. It sounded like they were having fun. The students used a book called The McGuffey Reader, and they also used the Bible. All the students from 1st through 8th grades were in the same classroom. The teacher would call the students, one grade at a time, to a bench in the front of the class. There, she would give them their lessons and assignments, and then they would go back to their desks to work. Sometimes the older students would help the younger ones with their studies.